What's up, everybody? This is over it, intern J Rob and Toaster here. John is still in Spain, and it looks like he put the fix in to have a double doink to ease all of his Chicago pain from that morning London game. Toaster, how you doing on this lovely Week 4 recap and Week 5 preview?
Um, I'm not feeling like I'm quite all there, but I probably feel more there than Tua does right now. So everything's relative.
If we're not feeling there, just say it was a back injury, shake your head off a little bit, and you might be out there for more injuries.
Yeah, I mean, I think we probably just jump right into that because he is getting investigated today with the NFLPA on what they ultimately did for his quote-unquote back injury
Yeah.
in the injury against the Bills the week prior because based on what you saw, whether it was back injury or head injury, there's debate whether or not he should have been on the field regardless of what level of injury it was. And then want to give the Bengals their due and, getting a little monkey off their back and getting back to 500 after a not great start. But they didn't do anything terribly impressive to me, especially against a Teddy Bridgewater-led team for a majority of the game. But I'll get into the Tua stuff after I let you kick it off on your off-the-cuffs for that Thursday night game.
Yeah, I mean, I think similar to what you said, the Bengals got the win, but I don't think it says a whole lot considering that game was really, really close when Tua was in the game. And I think the only reason why the Bengals pulled away was because of the Tua situation. I don't care how professional you are. I don't care how well professional athletes can compartmentalize things. Seeing what you saw from that Tua injury is definitely scary enough that I think it's hard to bounce back in a competitive mindset. So not surprised the Bengals were able to pull it out after all of that. The Tua stuff was scary as shit. I still don't feel great about the Bengals offense in regards to, I mean, T. Higgins is a freak. He's showing that he's more of a wide receiver 1A than a wide receiver 2. But they still can't really the pass rush, their run game. Joe Mixon loves running into his offensive line's backs. He got into the end zone, but still have a lot of question marks around the Bengals.
Yeah, they had a 2.5-yard clip. T. Higgins, I know you said that he's 1A. He was actually fourth on the team in average yards per catch, 17.7. Tyler Boyd had 23.5. Jamar Chase had 20.3, and that is my takeaway. That we talked about Penei Sewell last year, and was that the right pick to go Jamar Chase over Sewell? And it just keeps showing me that it ultimately was, because with those three, that's the best trio in football and probably has been the best trio in football for some time. So they'll continue to do damage, but they were down going into the fourth quarter. And 15-14, the Miami Dolphin offense wasn't able to do anything. I was feeling good for the spread at that point, even with Teddy Bridgewater at quarterback, because I didn't feel like there was a terrible drop-off, quite frankly. He's still, I mean, decent stats, 79.9 QBR, 193 yards, 1 TD, the game-clinching interception. But the story is and will continue to be Tua, and they've already ruled him out for Week 5.
Thank God.
Against the Jets. And it will be interesting to me to see how this ultimately plays out, because he can't get a third concussion this season. He just can't. The fallout from this, the first thing I thought of when I started putting all of this together was they're trying to make flag football an Olympic sport, and now the Pro Bowl's flag football. I think the NFL sees the writing on the wall that this might become the natural devolution of their game, is that they're not going to be able to continue to allow these types of hits and put a product on the field, because if Tua loses his career right now, that story doesn't go away for years. They don't want this holding over his head. I think that the only true play is to stick him away on IR for 4 weeks and just admit that, hey, we fired the independent neurotrauma consultant that failed to do his job. A lot of failures of the system, quite frankly, because to get him back into that Thursday game, they said they evaluated him every single day, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. After that, still gave him the clear. But that was a second impact syndrome to me. That fencing response was absolutely terrifying. The fact that he was released from the hospital as quickly as he was, I'm not a medical professional, although I am in the industry. To me, makes me think that they're trying to hide as much as they can, quite frankly. And
You think so? You think like the NFL is paying these
I don't know that
people?
I don't know that they're paying, but they're like, should he go home? It's not advisable. Can he go home? He can go home. Let's make sure he makes the team flight home and try to limit this fallout as much as possible. There's people that are saying that he shouldn't play again this year. People that say he probably shouldn't play again for his career. And I hate to take the bad side of this, but how he took that hit, the pocket awareness that he had in that situation, he was in the backfield for 5 to 7 seconds and did not do anything to try to protect himself, get rid of the ball, had zero concept that he was about to get taken down by a much, much bigger human being. And that's where the fear comes in to me on that third concussion is if you have that level of pocket awareness, there's nothing to say that this can't happen again. And we already know that concussions are cumulative. Some leading CTE experts out there are saying, again, he shouldn't be playing again. And I, as a Miami Dolphin owner, coach, physical trainer, whatever you want to call it, would not feel comfortable saying that I can prevent him from getting a third concussion, quote unquote third concussion. We'll call it a second concussion for their sake this year, which is still just as bad, right?
Yeah.
We've seen multiple people that have lost their careers to this, and it could get very perilous how they handle this one. So he's gone for week 5. I don't think he'll be back anytime soon. Their schedule is pretty soft for the next 4 games. So I think that they'll try to, again, survive. And I don't know if they think that it's better or worse to put him away on IR from a PR perspective. But they've got Jets, Vikings, Steelers, Lions, Bears, and then still Watsonless Browns and Texans coming up. So they could let him get some legitimate recovery time, maybe, throw away 2 of those games, but their schedule allows them to be conservative to it, and I just hope for their sake, for his sake, for the sake of football as we know it, that's what they ultimately decide to do.
Yeah, I mean, you can't help but think that they're obviously missing, but there was ulterior motives involved in trying to get to it back so fast. Like and I know it's a win now league. No, that's an excuse. It has been for a long time. When a dude cannot walk on his own feet, taking a hit, I don't give a fuck. What anything is saying, like on the value for that, like you need to just sit him out for optics alone. And yeah, the fact that they put him out there on a short, fired the independent guy. Surprised if there's more fire or more ramifications or repercussions decisions. I don't think it's going to be like a coach or anything like that, but you can't see shaking his head, claim it's a back, and then be like, you know what, we're going to take your benefit of the doubt. I like that's speculation, but I feel like that's what happened. I feel like he came to his senses quick enough between him wobbling, evaluate that neurologist, to be like, oh yeah, no, my back just feels weird, or just felt like there was just like a weird disconnect. I'm fine now. And maybe he took like incoherent with his I don't maybe he's like one of those freak athletes that his health he can regen. The best scenario is that he actually has the ability to just be like, you know what, yeah, I've blacked out for 2 minutes, but I'm fine. But I can't help but feel like that's not the case. And God forbid, we have another. Crosby almost lost for 2 years because of concussions, and no one knew if he was ever again, because he said for 18 months he woke up with a headache. 18 months. Similar second impact thing that I want to say like thoughts and prayers, because that doesn't do it justice. As a fan, like, what are you going to do other than hope that he's okay? So I hope the investigation comes back. What do you, in an ideal situation, how do you want the investigation to go as a fan?
I don't. Tua is the scapegoat's not the right word right now, but he is the one that's going to be the catalyst for change, and it already has changed. They've changed the no-go criteria to just say gross motor instability versus gross motor instability per a neurological cause. So that gray area is gone. I really don't care how the investigation goes from a who failed perspective, as long as we're willing to make change. I think the unaffiliated neurotrauma consultant was he is a scapegoat to say you didn't do your job. But hopefully it's just more recognition around the league is what I hope, and realizing that, hey, you're going to have your finger on that button that says we're pulling this guy out of the game. Like the same thing happened to Cam Brate in the Sunday night game for the Bucks. Is they didn't pull him out right away. He got to play a couple more, and then at halftime they're like, hey, you got a concussion. And so they just need to be quicker on that trigger. I know that there's consequences all around. They would have been pulling Brate out in a 2-minute drill, right? I mean, do the Dolphins win last week if he's not back at the helm for the Bills and potentially completely fine, right? But I think they've already made some adjustments from the investigation. There's two things that I do want to throw out there real quick. I'm a huge McDaniels fan. It kills me because I want to see the Dolphins succeed, but not as much success as, takes away from the Patriots. I did not like his responses to the Tua situation after the game. They felt kind of crafted and kind of, he hasn't been a party line businessman type of person. That's what we like about him, right? He's just, like, hey, what's up, everybody? Like, I'm just here, chill dude, like you.
I'm just a guy that loves football type thing.
Yeah. There's his quote was, "There's nothing that happened on Sunday that made him fall like that again on Thursday." And it's like, that's not what we're fucking talking about here, right?
Yeah.
It's about how the outcome of his fall, both of those times, is what we're talking about. And then secondly, selfishly, this puts me in a good position for my preseason prediction, and this is, I want to be very clear, not how I wanted it to happen, but I had Skylar Thompson leading the Miami Dolphins to a playoff victory, and watching Teddy, he was fine. Skylar had some magic early on, and if, he doesn't take care of the Jets, or he has a rough game against the Vikings, Teddy does. He might be in. We might get some Skylar action for Steelers, Lions, Bears, Browns, Texans. And is that enough to say, hey, let's just let Tua sit this out for a little bit, see what we got in Skylar? Worst case, we get a second-round pick a la Jimmy G for the Patriots style thing. But I can see this working out well for Skylar, the Dolphins, and hopefully, above all, works out well for Tua, that they make the right decisions to not rush him back, because I don't think he can protect himself well enough to say we feel comfortable with him going in until he is 100%, 110% clear of all of the symptoms, which takes time. We're talking about, it's a bruise to your brain. Like, how many times have you walked around and you're like, where did that bruise come from? I don't know. And it's there for a week or two at a time. Now we're talking with a brain and a guy that is going to get hit multiple times a game, and it just has to be, I mean, he didn't even get hit on this one, right? He just got pushed and fell over under his own momentum. And that
he got thrown down pretty good.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. The initial one.
The first one, yeah.
Just got pushed off balance and couldn't get up, with a, straight face. The second one, I think that was a little bit more egregious.
Oh, yeah, no, he got slammed. Definitely. Yeah, that one.
And he that may have been the same reaction without completely ancillary to anything that happened on Sunday. But watching that fencing response, dude needs more than 2 weeks to get himself right. Put him on IR, let Teddy go for a couple, get Skylar in, and then keep Skylar in the rest of the year.
Yeah, I agree. And, I honestly think with how Cooper Rush is looking in Dallas, maybe Miami's looking at Skylar and being like, we could have a similar situation. Buy yourself some time, let your starter come back with more time while you're still maintaining a serviceable record. Yeah, I think there might be something said to that. And hopefully they do take their time and ease him back into it and not let the success early on of this season dictate how they want to bring him back. So,
and
if you want to continue
the success was primarily in one quarter. That I want to be very clear that my tweet was before the concussion, but a large majority, he would have 4 touchdowns and 3 interceptions on the year for 800 yards in 3 games if he didn't have that one fourth quarter explosion for the Ravens, which we'll get into later. But apparently the Ravens like to get up by a lot and then not do anything the rest of the game.
Dude, yeah, we will definitely get to that game. We're going to stick on the trend of teams not having a quarterback and talk briefly about the Saints and the Vikings. The Monday or the morning game in London, The Vikings ended up covering off a double doink miss by the Saints. So, John, eat your heart out. Cody Parkey, while he might still be dead to you, he is no longer alive as the only double doinker. Is there anything to take away other than the fact that Kirk Cousins got confused enough to win a primetime game and the Saints almost won without a quarterback?
That's all I can take away is that maybe this is the primetime curse going away for Kirk, because I quite frankly didn't understand this -2.5 line. I'm not sure what it was by game time when you had Alvin Kamara, obviously Jameis Winston, and then Michael Thomas all out. That if that line hadn't creeped to close to a touchdown, I would have been shocked. But I mean, Dalvin Cook didn't do much on the ground. Kirk Cousins was serviceable at best. Justin Jefferson got back to his form, which was probably one of the scarier things for people going against the Vikings, is that you see that, okay, that 2-week slumber wakes up as a beast. And yeah, I think that means that they're going to start targeting him more. Adam Thielen got in the game again. So how the Saints put up 25 points, I'm still dumbfounded by. But ultimately, to me, this game really means nothing, because we weren't looking at a Saints team that had what they needed to have on offense to be competitive long term. And the Vikings, I mean, they could easily be 4-0, and we're having a completely different conversation. But we say that about the Vikings all the damn time. They love winning and losing by one possession. And they're at -7 this week. So play that as you will. Yep.
Yeah, I feel the same way. Like, are you really going to feel good about the Vikings beating a quarterbackless team? No. The Saints kept the Vikings close, but congrats, you kept the Kirk Cousins game close. So yeah, I think the Saints, if they can get Jameis back at a decent clip, or I think both teams are marginal playoff teams and maybe losing in the first round. So yeah, no big takeaways here. Another two kind of big playoff teams that people had predicted to be kind of the Final Four. Chiefs at Bucks -2. The Chiefs are for real, man. I know I was the first person to hate on the Chiefs. I know I was the first one to think that they weren't going to have a winning record around playoffs this year. I also thought the Raiders were going to make the playoffs, and I look like a fucking idiot saying that. So yeah, Chiefs ran away with this one. Is this a statement game by the Chiefs? Is this Tom going through a alleged divorce? A little bit of both. Kind of what are your takeaways on this one? Chiefs covered big.
To me, similarly, there are no takeaways. Both these teams will be there in January, and if they happen to meet each other in February, then we'll be in for a shootout again. This is two fantastic teams. More takeaways to me for the Chiefs getting themselves right than the Bucks not necessarily being there, but the Bucks still put up 31 points. Tom Brady had 385 yards, 3 TDs, 0 interceptions. Still looked like it was worth throwing away a supermodel marriage to say, hey, I could still have a shot at a ring, even if you're taking away my other ring, right? Yeah. But there was absolutely no rushing game to speak of for the Bucks, which was a little bit surprising. But they were down 21-3 very early. The Chiefs are right. The Chiefs spreading the ball around is deadly. The Travis Kelce is damn near unguardable. And then if they're going to start throwing in some trick plays once in a while, that Patrick Mahomes' interception luck kind of caught up with him a little bit, because that was not a good interception to throw. But they're working creativity on offense right now, and that should be scary for the league. And their defense is nothing to scoff at right now, which was the big question coming in, even bigger to me than losing Tyreek Hill.
Yeah, honestly, shout out to the organization for looking at the defense last year, saying this isn't going to cut it. They only brought back half of their defensive roster from last year, so they had the ability to be self-aware and move pieces and get rid of guys that probably weren't sexy at the time, like the Tyrann Mathieu release, but it ended up opening up money for them to go elsewhere and get bigger needs, like at corner. Like, their defense is young. They kind of were able to find this like formula of getting a young like, they're paying Pat, so it's like, what, you either have a really good defense with a rookie deal at quarterback, or you just have a bunch of cheap shit with a highly paid quarterback. And they were able to get this young talent that's able to produce very quickly. And so shout out to the front office for building what looked like, I thought it was going to be a little bit of a shit show. I thought it was going to be more growing pains than it was. And the fact that there weren't any growing pains is what's fucking annoying about this situation. Is, yeah,
Why did the
Tyreek
Broncos
left
have
and they
growing
didn't skip a
pains?
beat. What's up?
Why do the Broncos have growing pains?
Oh my God.
Raiders have growing pains.
They have more
Everyone
than
else in
growing
that
pains.
division has growing pains, and once again, the Chiefs are looking like they're the runaway favorites for this division. I will say that I wasn't expecting that either with my Chargers pick. I still think that that's close enough that it could be reasonable. You're probably not feeling quite the same way on your Broncos. We can get to that later in our primetime picks, but this team is. Anytime you have Patrick Mahomes, you're going to be able to be explosive. You're going to be able to put up points. If you put up points in this league, you can win games. So
Yep.
they're 3-1.
They got the running game going.
Yeah, and I mean they have Pacheco behind Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I mean even Jerick McKinnon, he didn't do anything in this game, but if they
He's
do
a
get
threat.
in a ball, in a behind situation, he's one of the better receiving backs out of the backfield. So they've got the firepower. Their offensive line is holding up acceptably. I mean they gave up 3 sacks, but they're meshing. And
Yeah.
again, Travis Kelce, just like when Tom had Rob Gronkowski, it is a difference maker because that is where the tight end is, if they are lined up in a tight end position and not truly out wide, they're in your field of view on pretty much every pass. And that big body can get in front of some defenders. All you do, throw it low, right at their dick, and they just go down. 10-yard
Box 'em out.
reception every single time. Yep, it's a bounce pass in basketball. So they're gonna be a lot to
hate it.
contend with. Yeah,
Yeah.
we're all there.
It was denial at the start of the season. It was like, maybe I can convince, like, there was a big change in losing Tyreek Hill. Maybe I can convince myself into them not being good. And yeah, it was just another reminder that the Chiefs are light years ahead and will own the AFC West for at least the next 5 to 7 years.
Well, I mean, and good news for you, Patrick Mahomes is only counting $35 million against the cap this season, so that'll only increase. And Drew Lock's still on his rookie contract, so no, that doesn't matter as much anymore. You paid Russell more than Pat at this point.
I mean,
From a
shit,
cap
at this
hit
point,
perspective.
we're getting the same output from Russ as we're getting from Drew Lock. So, like, what the fuck was that $230 million for? Yeah, I will go into a long, colorful rant about them in about 10 minutes. Before that, the team that Denver somehow beat in the 49ers absolutely demolished the Rams on Monday night. Is this concerning for the Rams, or is this similar to last year where they had that rough patch and you're like, what are they going to do?
I mean,
And they got it figured out.
I was shocked that they weren't able to get to Jimmy G with that pass rush for the Rams, and Trent Williams was still out, right?
I think so.
So for them to give up 0 sacks, that was the difference in this game to me. When I bet on the Rams, was thinking that they would be able to get enough pressure on Jimmy G to knock him off his schedule, because that's really all he is a passer, is somebody that's trying to hit somebody wide open with good timing. And when you have Deebo Samuel, they're always wide open. Even when they catch it with a receiver or a defender right behind them, he's still wide open when he runs 40 yards past them down the field. Tremendous touchdown run. Watching that dude play is just exciting. To me, the final score is not as indicative of how close the game truly was. So I don't feel bad about that 2.5 points. The big takeaway for me was, do we have another Troy Polamalu? Because I'm not even going to try to say his name, but the Hufanga, Talanoa Hufanga, I guess I'm going to try and say his name. He was fun, and he read Matthew Stafford the entire way. Matthew Stafford now leads the league in interceptions. Nothing new for Matthew Stafford.
Yeah.
And Sean McVay was livid on the sidelines, basically saying, I told you that would happen. He said, did you forget? So it's like, I coached you up. I told you what was going to happen, and then you just continued to do it. So I still think this team has too much talent, too much explosiveness to shy away from them. But the entire division's 2-2 right now. Like we always said that the NFC West was going to be a competitive division over these last 3 to 4 years, and now it's super competitive from a parity standpoint. But none of these teams look like juggernauts anymore, like they used to. So it's interesting to see where this goes. I still have the Rams probably eking things out, but the 49ers have a third place schedule. So they they have some victories that could come their way just based on a scheduling standpoint.
Yeah, I think this is speaking more of the Niners defense than any concern that you probably should have for the Rams. There's probably a little bit of a hangover. I do think they're probably missing Von Miller a little more than they want to admit. But that Niners defense is unbelievable. They're first in damn near every category that you care about on the defensive side of the football. And I think regardless of Jimmy G's output, that defense is going to keep them in games. I don't know what their turnover margin is or their point differential on turnovers is, but as long as they keep being the best defense in the league, they're going to be competitive. They run the ball. Wilson scored.
And they can
Debo
run
is
the ball
basically a
with
runner out
anybody.
in the out. What's up?
They can run the ball with anybody, which is
Yeah.
the crazy part. Whoever your RB1 is, you can expect popping off 4.5 plus yards per carry in that system. It is incredible what they're able to do.
Yeah, and with that defense, it's going to be nasty. And now that Jimmy G finally has a playbook, I don't think it'll be as ugly as that Denver game was, him getting thrown into the mix and just kind of having to figure it out. Yeah, I think the Niners are looking scary, even though Jimmy G doesn't scare you, but I think that Niners team is going to play everyone close regardless of Jimmy G's performance. That's what makes them scary. And yeah, the Rams have some figuring out to do, but I don't think you're going to teach Matt Stafford any new tricks like at this point in his career, and you kind of got to give and take with what you get with them.
They're kind of where they were last year, where they were kind of this middling team, and then they signed OBJ after he was cut by the Browns. And
Yeah.
OBJ is back out there. For some reason, Stafford can't look at anybody but Kupp. He had 19
It's insane.
targets, 14 receptions for only 122 yards, but that is the only place he is looking. I thought Allen Robinson would honestly be potentially an even better fit with them than OBJ was, and I guess he got 6 targets, but a couple of those were quite frankly close to throwaways.
Yeah.
I don't know why he can only single in on Cooper Kupp. We'll give Tyler Higbee credit, but he's no extraordinary athlete or anything, right? Like he's a chain mover. He's a good tight end. Don't get me wrong. Not trying to take anything away from him, but as far as offensive explosiveness, you have Kupp, and that is it, because there's no running game to speak of. There's no second receiver to speak of. And if you're looking at just moving the ball down the field, Higbee's viable, but they aren't able to sustain drives. I mean, they put up 9 points, 3 field goals, and Matthew Stafford had another interception, another fumble. Like they are going to need to figure things out, and I think OBJ is going to continue to hold out as long as possible. I would say the Rams are probably still the favorite to get him, but he wants to make sure that they're playoff contenders by the time that he's healthy in November, and they may not be 6 weeks from now.
True. Yeah, I don't blame OBJ for holding out, and yeah, I still think they'll figure it out, but they are, I mean, God forbid injuries, but they're not a deep team. They're very talented, but they're not a deep team. So if they need to figure it out, they need to figure it out with their starters and hope they can stay healthy, because yeah, I think they'll be okay, but there's definitely some potential concerns. It's hard to replicate a Super Bowl, season, and I think it's even harder to replicate doing the same mistakes and expecting the same result. So, or expecting a different result, or expecting it to be okay. I know the saying's repeating the same thing over and over, expecting a different result. It's insanity, but you get what I'm saying here. I'm driving myself crazy, and I'm sure John Harbaugh and the Ravens are also driving themselves crazy by blowing a 17-point lead. They basically scored 20 in the first half, did not score another point in the second half. The Bills came back to win 23-3 against the Ravens. John Harbaugh and the Ravens had a chance to go. They ended up going for it. 4 minutes left in the game. It was like a 4th and 2, 4th and 3. Instead of kicking the field goal to go up 23-20, they opted to go for it, got intercepted in the end zone. The Bills came down, basically drove it all the way down, milked the clock, kicked a game-winning field goal. Did the Ravens give this game up, or are the Bills just finally getting the one possession win off their back?
I can't blame Harbaugh either way on this one. I think if you kick the field goal, you guarantee overtime, which we've proven from the Bills themselves that it could be a coin toss, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, who's to say that Justin Tucker's going to make that 27-yard field goal? Like, there's always risk with any play. But I like the aggressiveness the offense hadn't done anything in the second half, and that's where my concern kind of came in as far as being aggressive there. You can't blame Jackson for the throw, quite frankly. You throw it up in that situation. It was just off chance that they got the ball at the 20 instead of at the 4. And I don't think that made a difference either way. It's like watching Drew Brees in a comeback situation. It didn't really matter whether you kicked it deep, you pooched it, you did a damn onside kick. The dude was going to make it back to the 40-yard line of the opposing team within a minute each and every time because they were just that efficient, that good. They had the timing down. They knew what they needed to do. They may not get into the end zone, but they can get back to that 40 fringe field goal range. And I think that's what Harbaugh looked at was like, we are going to give up a field goal to the Bills regardless. They're too talented. They're finally, moving things in the second half, even though it wasn't anything earth-shattering. But I think he had the confidence that, with 4 downs, because you're not punting in that situation, that they were going to at least get a field goal. And people say he did this because he was betting against his defense. I kind of think it was him betting on his defense. He's like, if we get a touchdown, they're not going to be able to get a touchdown back. If we kick a field goal, they're going to be able to get a field goal back. And then who knows what's going to happen in overtime because we may never see the ball. So I want to put the ball in the best player's hands on the team, which is Lamar Jackson right now. I don't think he's the MVP of the league, but damn near every statistical category says he should be. Yeah. Right? And you got one play to win it, and quite frankly, you still have a bunch of plays to not lose it if the defense is able to step up. But the Bills ran it down the field very, very quickly. It really wasn't in doubt. I was actually at this game. The fans gave up pretty dang early in that drive because they were basically just milking out that win. But this is, for me, a little bit of karma for the Bills because they shouldn't have lost that game against the Dolphins. That's and fair. The Ravens, it's maybe who the Ravens are. Like they're explosive, but then they go dormant because they didn't have a point in the second half. And that's why I don't think Lamar's an MVP at this point in time. Granted, weather was absolutely atrocious. Everyone I was at the game with was miserable except for me because I live in Arizona. I'm used to sunshine and rainbows
this is great.
And all sorts of stuff. And I'm like, this is crab cakes, football, weather. This is what Maryland does, right? So it was entertaining to me, but that might have had something to do with it. But you can't have your MVP going scoreless in the second half against a premier team. 2 interceptions. To me, this is another game where does it really say that much about either team? It probably doesn't. Would love to know what the Marcus Peters situation was on the sideline, considering he came out and said that he agreed with the Harbaugh decision, no ill will. They just wanted to execute better on defense. But that didn't look like a dude that was just yelling, let's execute better.
No. Yeah, my takeaways is definitely similar to yours, where it's like you need more out of Lamar in crunch time, but I'm not really taking too much negatively away from either team. I think my biggest concern is what seems to be a very glaring lack of communication in the Ravens secondary. For whatever reason, it seems to show its ugly head in the second half. The Dolphins' comeback on the Ravens was all in the second half. There was every big play that was given up. It was a lot of finger pointing, a lot of Marcus Peters looking at the other corners and then looking back at each other going, whose assignment was that? And then the concern in this game was on that final drive, when they were like within like the 15, they handed the ball off and there were multiple Raven defenders that were like basically like olaying the Singletary to like run past him to essentially let him score. And so you had half the defense with their being, what the fuck are you doing? Guys, what do you mean, what am I doing? They're going to score anyways. Do we not want the ball back? And so if I had to speculate, my guess is that Peters and Harbaugh went at it being like, yo, what the fuck are we doing? Are we trying to let them score or are we trying to stop them? Because why the fuck are we trying to stop them on the 10-yard line for, a 2005 field goal or like, an extra point from 2005 when we should be trying to let them score and get the ball back. So
No,
I think
that's a very astute point because I didn't get the bickering back and forth in perspective of that until now. Because the only play to win there was to let them score, and that makes great sense.
And if you go back, like there were multiple guys. One guy in particular, legit, like you would have thought the dude had like Delta COVID the way he like jumped away from him. That it's that kind of miscommunication is weird. It's weird for a Bengals team, for a Ravens team. That you'd expect that from a Bengals team, but the fact that a John Harbaugh led team is not, or is it Jim? John? I always get him twisted.
That one's John. Yeah.
That one's John. Okay. Like usually like a John Harbaugh team you assume is like buttoned up. They're not going to make those mistakes. They're not going to commit bad penalties. They're not going to have blown coverages, especially on the defensive side. And we're having blown coverages, a lot of finger pointing. That's something of concern. But if I'm the Ravens, I'd rather have that now than in December. And so that's why it's concerning, but it's fixable. And so, yeah, I think the Ravens will still be competitive. The Bills, congrats on the comeback. But
And
yeah,
they've got a big primetime game coming up that we will ultimately talk about too. But that AFC North standings right now: Cleveland 2-2, Cincinnati 2-2, and Baltimore 2-2. But I think Baltimore's 2 losses could easily have gone the other way, and they would contend that way too. So, this is September football, as Bill Belichick would put it. Right? You figure yourself out, and if these are the bickerings that need to go back and forth right now, let's do it when we're losing to a AFC Championship contending team when it doesn't matter, so that when we are in the AFC Championship, we do what matters.
absolutely. And speaking of Bill Belichick, we had the Patriots at the Packers. They were able to cover with what was looking like going to be a Brian Hoyer-led cover. That lasted all of like, what, a quarter and a half, and then he walked his old ass into the locker room and said, you know what, I'd rather be a backup. And we got, oh my God, Zappy. What's his first name? I'm already drawing a blank.
I don't even
Bailey Zappy?
Yeah, it's Bailey, I believe.
Yeah, Bailey Zappy.
But I think it's Zap. I don't know. He's too far on the depth chart for us to really respect. But yeah, the Patriots.
They covered.
You asked me last week if this was tank time for the Patriots, and I told you no. That defense is too special. I know that it's 27 points against the Packers, but I mean they were outmanned in this game, and they kept it close. Maybe the Zappy entering the game was a little bit of a Green Bay doesn't know they've never seen tape on him, right? So maybe that's what keeps it close. But there was never time in watching this game where I was like, Aaron Rodgers and the Packers have control of this game, and that's what Bill Belichick does. That's why there's people calling for his head in Boston, because they haven't seen a 1-3 season in some time. And
Wow,
it's like,
that's
no,
spoiled.
he is still the greatest defensive coach of all time. And hopefully, to me, this is something that shows that they can be a little explosive on offense if they just let them play. Right? You're not Tom Brady, where you're going to be able to have an amazing throw downfield, because none of the quarterbacks on that roster have the arm talent that Tom Brady did. So they were used to him, dinking, dunking, and then hitting a couple of spectacular things. And now they're just saying, well, we can't hit the spectacular things, so we've still got to keep dinking and dunking. But hey, let's just play free at this point. Got a couple of long passes out of Zappy, and I think that this could have been a turn. I mean, if they had won this game, that would have been a turning point for the season, 100%. I still think that everything that the Patriots have done this year, they are within expectations, and it doesn't change the outcome to me, that they're right on the fringe of being first out of the playoffs. They've got spectacular defense. They re-signed one of their old linebackers this week to the practice squad, and I think they'll figure it out. To me, this means more to the Packers, and they're winning, but they don't look good.
No, their defense looks good, but they keep having these games where it's like, okay, this will be like a get right game, or a way for them to kind of test some things out or show that they still got it, and they struggle. Like, Rodgers doesn't have that guy he trusts. I mean, he trusts Randall Cobb, I guess, but like, are you really wanting to dip into the well of a 35-year-old wide receiver who was on his last leg like 3 years ago? Yeah. Dobbs is looking. Dobbs had a touchdown, but yeah, they don't have that threat of like, oh shit, like we got Aaron Rodgers in the Packers. It's like, if we can manage the game and keep the ball out of his hands, which seems easier than it has in years past, I think teams are looking at the Packers and feeling like they are beatable. Not, I mean, not an easy win, but I don't think you're looking at the Packers and thinking, oh man, like we're just happy to keep this game close. And so, yeah, I was thoroughly impressed with the Patriots' performance, especially getting thrown a third stringer in there halfway through the game. I think they held it down well. I think that does speak to Bill Belichick and his preparation, especially. I mean, I can't believe he's getting like people asking for his job. I mean, that's might be the most entitled thing I've heard all
everyone's
season.
saying they should have kept Brady, all this stuff, and it's like, I mean, can never separate Belichick and Brady, in my opinion, but specifically the early years,
Yeah.
the Patriots are nothing without Bill Belichick. Brady
Oh,
played well, but it was that defense that was securing those victories, and then it's kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy at that point once you've had that much success that you get those free agents. You get I mean, shit, how'd they ever get Randy Moss on that team in general, right? A fourth-round pick for Randy Dan Moss, and Bill Belichick's just like, can you just do what I say, and then we'll be great. And
he's like, sure.
yeah. So they're in tandem. I hope Bill sticks around for some time because his teams are fun to watch. Like
Yeah.
the games are entertaining, in my opinion. I mean, even the Ravens game last week, where the final score didn't look that great. They were within taking the lead with 5 minutes left in the game, so
Yeah.
they will be competitive. The ceiling is not falling. Let Mac Jones get healthy. This season is not your Super Bowl season. Let's not be ridiculous about this.
Yeah.
So let's just not, like Tua, let's not risk their long-term health to say, hey, let's get an extra victory here, an extra victory there, because the backups are playing okay, and they just signed Garrett Gilbert, who was with Cooper Rush in Dallas, so he may be Tony Romo light, just ready to come off the practice squad next week.
There you go. Got that magic in him. Hey, you'd
Yeah.
be surprised. All it takes is a new
They
face.
split. Yeah, they split starts last year. So I think Garrett Gilbert actually started ahead of Cooper Rush when Dak went down. So he could be just as talented, and maybe it was Mike McCarthy that was holding everybody back, and Bill Belichick can really unleash the Garrett Gilbert if they need to.
I mean, I think that's the biggest optimism stance you could have is, hey, he was okay with Mike McCarthy, so he can only be better without him. Two more games to touch on very, very briefly before I parlay the shit show that was the Broncos game into the Week 5 primetime. The Eagles are a wagon. I don't think that Jags game was close. Oh my God, Trevor Lawrence might be a bad weather quarterback where the second he gets bad weather, he fumbles the ball like 7 times. But I don't really have much to say about this game other than the fact that the game went kind of how I thought it would. Close game in the first half, and then kind of just better team prevails in the second half.
You thought the Jags were going up 14 to start the game?
I didn't think they were going to go up 14 to start the game, but at no point did I feel like I had a money line bet on the Jags just because I'm doing underdog money lines anyways, and the Jags have been looking good. But even up 14, I'm just like, this feels too good to be true. And sure enough, they were what? It was 21-14 like by the second quarter. So they made that comeback pretty quick.
Yeah, it's 14-20 at the half, and then the Eagles ultimately got up 29-14 before. I won't call it quite garbage time because that's still within a 2-possession game, but Trevor Lawrence threw a second touchdown pass to their third-string running back, Agnew, and if that's what it takes, I mean, I'm not going to call Trevor Lawrence's stats garbage, but nothing that he did in that particular game was impressive to me.
Yeah.
I mean, play here, play there. Don't get me wrong, but there was nothing where he was putting the team on the back and saying we're gonna win this against the Eagles. It was a game flow situation, and they had a chance. We'll put it that way. I won't lie. Being at the Bills-Ravens game and seeing them up 14, I'm like, what the heck is going on? Trevor Lawrence has to be playing out of his ass. It's like, oh, no, first touchdown was an interception return for a TD. So, okay, yeah, that makes a little bit more sense. It's truly a 7-0 game. And Jalen Hurts, to me, the Eagles look like they're for real. The passing stats from Hurts weren't amazing, but the weather was also terrible. Miles Sanders, I don't know where he came from because he's been on my fantasy team like the last 3 years and hasn't done any of this shit. Um, Obviously, don't draft him this year when he's throwing up
Of course.
134 yards and 2 TDs against the Jaguars. But I think both of these teams are surprisingly contenders. Jags 2-2 in that AFC South, where only Tennessee's 2-2. Indianapolis is 1-1, getting into another primetime game that we'll talk about. And I don't think Houston is the threat, and Davis Mills is probably not the answer.
Yeah, I agree with all that. One more game before the Broncos game. Any takeaways from the Cardinals Panthers game other than the Panthers being kind of like the Texans, where they're not as good as we thought, and the Cardinals are playing backyard football?
Oh, this one hurts so bad because this is the second year in a row where I've said the Panthers are the sneaky team, and Mayfield looks absolutely
Bad.
lost. He had 9 passes batted at the line of scrimmage, and he's not like an overly impressive figure, but he's not a Tua, he's not a Drew Brees, he's not a short person with respect to those guys, and he looks lost out there. He is running around. He doesn't set his feet. He just looks like if exactly what he wants to happen isn't happening, he has no idea what's going on, and it looks bad for these Panthers, which is sad because they've got a lot of talent around them. That defense keeps them in the game and could keep any reasonable offense in the game. And I don't think that they'll fire Matt Rule midseason, but if he's an offensive mind, and their offense is what's holding them back right now.
Yeah, I think this is more of the Panthers are really bad. Not really bad, but like as long as Baker's going to be their quarterback, it's really bad. Not that Sam Darnold is going to be any better. Do I feel bad for Matt Rule? No. Do I feel like he got the short end of a stick with the quarterback situation from the jump? Kinda. But yeah, I don't think he'll get fired midseason unless the only way I think he gets fired midseason is if they truly think that Baker's getting mismanaged and that they think, oh, if we fire Matt Rule, we can get a true evaluation of if we want to go with Baker after this year. So that may be the only way Matt Rule gets fired. But I just think that Darnold's gone, Baker's gone,
I
Rule's
don't think
gone.
that matters because they could get Baker back if they wanted him by
That's true.
playing
That's
with
true.
Matt Rule, right? All they're doing is getting him back for even cheaper than they would have got him otherwise. They've already got a rookie quarterback in waiting, right? So they can say, "Hey, Baker, come back for a hell of a lot cheaper than the 18 million you were originally guaranteed." I know he restructured his contract slightly, but they can get Baker back and evaluate him in the offseason with a new coach and probably spin it that way, right? Like, hey, we recognize that Matt Rule was, holding you back. Here you go. We're giving you $7 million. That's more than you're going to get from anybody after this absolutely dreadful season. So let's see what you can do. The Cardinals are not without blame in this game, though. The offense didn't do anything in the first half. I don't know where these slow starts are coming from because that is supposed to be what the Cardinals do: is start fast and end slow.
Yeah, and tread water. Yeah.
They're not starting fast. They're really not ending fast either. They're just getting by. I mean, this game was close all the way into the fourth quarter. The Panthers offense couldn't do anything, and obviously we've got the 20-point collapse of the Raiders that lets them be 500 in this division. But I just don't see anything special. I am excited for D-Hop to come back because it will add a new dynamic to that offense, and I think that that's what they need. They can't execute with the level of talent that they have right now, and they just let go of Andy Isabella because he wasn't getting the playing time he wanted. So, poor drafting. They're going to have to pay both of these receivers eventually, and I don't think this looks like a recipe for success at all. But the slow starts, they need to stop for the Cardinals because they aren't talented enough to overcome this against a good team.
Yeah, I agree. I think the defense is okay. It's not going to keep them in games. And yeah, it clearly takes Kyler playing out of his mind to have a 10-point win against the Panthers. And not that he was even playing out of his mind, but he didn't have a lot of mistakes. And so it took him having a good game. I mean, I'm very surprised that Marquis Brown is having the production that he is. thought he couldn't catch in Baltimore, and he's showing that he can get it done. So I am surprised about his production. I do think Marquis Brown and DeAndre Hopkins will help encourage those faster starts, but I'm with you, man. Like
It's also volume. He had 11 targets and only 6 catches, so he is the only. He was never getting 11 targets for the Ravens because they didn't throw that many times a game.
So that is misleading. Then I mean, I'm just getting the bias from seeing him catch a touchdown for once in a NFL uniform. uniform.
Actually, looking at this, it's kind of ironic. Zach Ertz, 100% targets to reception. Trey McBride, 100% targets to reception. James Conner, 100% targets to reception. Dortch, 100%. Eno Benjamin, 100%. The only people that didn't catch every single time they were targeted were Rondell Moore, who was 3 for 5, and then Marquise Brown, 6 of 11. So I think that it might be more of a volume perspective as far as his success than it is truly him being able to be that first-round draft pick twice now, which is even harder to say as a homer for the Cardinals.
Perfect. Then I can continue down that the Cardinals are a backyard football team. The last game, and I'm dreading talking this. The last game we're going to cover, and I'm just going to parlay this into our Week 5 primetime pick. The Broncos at the Raiders. I had the Broncos covering plus 2.5, and they didn't do any of that. They can't run an offense. Their defense couldn't stop the run. We couldn't run the ball. Javonte Williams is out for the year. Russell Wilson will basically put 2 or 3 drives together. It gives you hope, and then put Drew Lock-like drives together for the rest of the game. We didn't have a delayed game, which I guess was like kind of a plus, but I am over this team. I already feel like this is going to be one of the worst contracts for a quarterback in a long time. He looks slow. He doesn't move in the pocket. He just stands there and stares at people. I don't feel good about this contract at all, and I don't think this is like a Peyton Manning situation where like the first half of the first year Peyton was here, I think we went like 3-4. Like we were looking kind of wobbly, but then they just figured it out, and then year 2 was
Osweiler in, and then
well, that was year 4. But then year 2 was when they went to the Super Bowl and then got lost to the Seahawks, but they were like best offense ever. I don't see that happening with Denver. I don't see it being one of those like growing pain years turned like a new leaf in year 2. I have zero faith in the Broncos making the playoffs this year. You had every opportunity to play against a shitty Raiders defense, and they looked serviceable. The Raiders stopped the run, and they couldn't stop the run all fucking year. You couldn't stop the run against an offensive line that was one of the worst in the league in the Raiders offensive line. It just looks bad across the board. Surtain held down against Adams, but other than that, everything looked fucking terrible. They're the most penalized team in the league, the most undisciplined team in the league. I can't help but feel like Nathaniel Hackett's going to be on the hot seat after year 1.
Is he gone after 1 year?
If there's no sign of like significant improvement by the end of the year, I think so. Especially since it seems like they picked up Hackett to try and lure Rodgers in the offseason. There was an interview done with Nathaniel Hackett that they asked like what the interview process was like, and he straight up admitted that they didn't really talk a lot of X's and O's when he was getting interviewed. It was more about like personal stuff and kind of like just getting getting the vibe of how he is as a person, and that's concerning considering you paid $230 million for a quarterback to come in, and you didn't even vet your coach to see if he had a system that was going to fit the guy that you were bringing in. So, yeah, there's a lot of concerns, and I think part of that does have to do with the ownership exchange this offseason. Like, there was a lot of moving parts happening at the same time at a lot of very important positions that I don't think it's going to work. I don't think this is going to change anytime soon. He's not getting any younger. And yeah, Denver's fucked. So I am over it, J-Rob. Yeah, that's my title for the week.
You've summarized everything. Unfortunately, we'll get back to them here shortly. But losing Javonte through this, and Melvin Gordon all of a sudden can't hold on to the football, and people are picking up Mike Boone on waiver wires left and right, thinking that he's the new lead back. This offense is leaving quite a bit to be desired. Good news for you, they can get out of the Russ contract after 3 years, which apparently it takes 4 years to win a Super Bowl based on Peyton Manning. So that'll be perfect, right? When he's ready to come around, you can get out of it pretty reasonably. But
I don't think Denver will, though. I think they're
don't think
so
they will.
scared of not having a quarterback that I don't think they'll get out of the deal.
Well, they might be drafting pretty low based on what they've put out this season. No, I'm just kidding. They have too much talent. The defense is still there, but I was shocked by this. And I mean, they did everything right except for stop the run. Derek Carr did not have a spectacular game. Devontae still put up Devontae numbers. 9 for 101, not anything spectacular, but I would be happy. I think any team would be happy holding them to that without a touchdown. It was a defensive touchdown, and not being able to stop Josh Jacobs was their undoing. I'm a little surprised. I thought that the Broncos would do a little bit better than this, but they're one game out of the basement in the AFC West right now, and they're losing the tiebreaker to that team.
Yeah, I'm getting a vibe that they'll probably end up around 500, but I would not be surprised at all if their division record is like 1 win, because they're not matching up well. Because
the Chargers are
well.
the Chargers, so they'll win one against the Chargers.
It would be so on brand for them just to lose every division game this year. And honestly, I'm gonna go that route just to emotionally hedge any win that we actually get in the division.
All right, well,
but yeah,
are you emotionally hedging for Thursday night?
I mean, we can get right into it. The Thursday night game is the Colts at the Broncos -3. This might be the one game on the slate that I genuinely have no idea how to feel about, because both teams have looked exponentially awful on the offensive side of the ball with zero ability to have a defense that keeps the teams in games. I don't know how the Colts beat the Chiefs that 1 week. After seeing how they've been playing the rest of the season, I'm going to take. Oh God, you know what? It's still early in the season. It's a short week. It's in Mile High. I'm going to take Denver -3. I just went back and forth like 10 times in my head. I hate this pick. I think this game is like the loser leaves town game. Whoever loses this game is not making the playoffs. Like I will go that far and say both these teams have great talent, and if they can't figure it out in this game, not that one game determines an entire season, but this is like a must-win for both teams, in my opinion, trying to find their identity. That I think whoever loses this game is missing the playoffs. And so, yeah, I'm taking the Broncos -3, but I don't think they're going to win the game. And I know that's contradicting because I just said they're -3, but like, do you feel good about any team like winning this game? Because I don't.
I mean,
Jonathan Taylor might be out.
The Colts have already tied, so I guess if you were going to not feel good about any team winning, the Colts would be one of the potential prospects. I saw this as a trap game. Went back and forth on this quite a bit as well, because I saw the Colts at 3.5 or plus 3.5, and I was like, is this Vegas trying to say that, hey, let's believe in the Colts because they just need to not lose by more than a field goal? That's right on the precipice of, hey, we can fudge some numbers towards the Colts side, and I think it's already come down, and that's what has Vegas pushing this back down to -3. I am going to go with the Colts because I think that they are ultimately the better team. This is without Darius Leonard, but the Broncos are also going to be without Randy Gregory at this point. Yep. They need to figure out how to run the ball. With
Jonathan Taylor is questionable.
He is questionable. He also hasn't done all that much this year. So I don't think that having Nyheim Hines in there is going to be a bad thing. I mean, what Matt Ryan and Cordell Patterson did last year. I mean, it's not that Hines and Patterson are 1-to-1, but it's kind of the similar scat back style that I think that they can potentially figure some things out. I think the 24-0 loss is an aberration for the Colts. I think that that's something where you get in the game and you just can't get out of your own head, whereas the Broncos have been in close games this entire time and they haven't been able to execute. So to me, that's one where, hey, that's
self-inflicting too.
Throwaway game. We burn that tape, we bury it, and let's move on. And they did that right by beating the Chiefs the next week. division games are always tough. They only lost by a touchdown. This offensive line, which is supposed to be stalwart, it can't protect Matt Ryan, and hopefully he can watch enough tape in 2 days to figure out what the heck he's doing wrong. But they do have their receivers healthy, and for that reason, I think that the Broncos just
suck.
I don't have the stats for the entire league, but the Colts are averaging 14.3 points per game, and the Broncos are averaging 16.5 points per game. That has to be one of the lowest primetime matchups that we've gone after in some time. The problem is the Colts haven't been able to stop people on defense, and I'm not saying that they ultimately will stop the Broncos on defense, but the Broncos might stop themselves, and that's where I'm going. That give me the points in a team in a game where I don't trust either team. You don't trust either team, so let's go with the points.
Yeah, I'm already regretting my Broncos pick, but I'm just going to stick to it for the sake of parity.
Well, if it makes you feel better, the man across the pond also went Broncos.
All right. That makes me feel so. I don't even know. Dude, I don't even know how the Broncos make me feel about anything anymore. So, yeah, I'm just going to keep it moving. We have another game in London. It doesn't necessarily have to be a primetime game, but we included the other London game in the primetime pick, so we'll go ahead and do this one. I don't think this one's going to be a tough pick in my opinion, but I'll be curious to see what you think. We have the quarterbackless Giants. Saquon Barkley was running Wildcat offense at the end of last week's game. We have the Giants at the Packers in London. Packers are -8.5, so they're getting a little more than a touchdown. But where do you fall on the Packers at Giants, or Giants at Packers?
I don't see Daniel Jones on the injury report anymore, which makes me think that he is going to be the quarterback for this game, not Saquon. If you look at these two teams side by side, they're actually match up pretty impressively well when you substitute passing yards for rushing yards. That's a lot of travel. Some more travel for Green Bay. I would probably err on the side of taking the points again for the Giants. They're 3-1 against the spread. I think this goes one of two ways. It's a close brawl like the Packers had to do against the Patriots last week, or it's a blowout for the Packers. NFL doesn't want to blow out. Definitely doesn't want to blow out in London, of all places. So give me, again, the points.
You swayed me. That is a great point about it being in London. The NFL wants a close game, and they're two big markets. I didn't even think about the markets, too. You got New York, and then Packers are a small market, but they travel well. They're very recognizable. Yeah, you swayed me. I'm actually going to take the Giants plus 8.5 as well. The fact that the offense on the Packers hasn't looked great, but it's more about the NFL wanting to have a good game out there, and not necessarily a high-scoring game, but a close game makes for a good game when you're trying to sell product internationally. And so, yeah, I'm going to take the Giants at plus 8.5 as well.
And then we don't have a formal pick for this part of the primetime parlay because it doesn't technically count. But thank you, NFL, for giving us more football, more spread out. If I was to pick for John, I say that he goes for the Packers.
You think so? I always assume he just wants to fade Rodgers.
If he is willing to go against the Bears for the Packers, I think he's willing to go against Daniel Jones for the Packers. So, and hey, maybe we get Saquon as a full-time QB, and we just get exciting stuff. So, I think we'll pencil him in for that, but non-binding, considering we both have bonus picks on the way as well.
Fair enough. Perfect. Heading into the Sunday night game, we have a division matchup with the Bengals at the Ravens. Vegas pretty much has this as a coin toss, giving the Ravens -3 points, aka the home field advantage. Who do you got for the Sunday night game, Burrow versus Lamar?
If I had to pick after 3 quarters, it would be the Ravens 100%. Considering this is a division game at home, they're 0-2 at home. They want to wipe up the Bengals right now. I know that we just said that Joe Burrow and the Bengals have the best trio that we've seen in some time, and we talked about the Baltimore deficiencies in the backfield. I think that the Ravens just get right in this game. This is the one to me that says we're going to close this one out, and I really don't have much hesitation about this one at all.
Interesting. So I'm taking the Bengals on this one. Similar to the reasons you said, but going the opposite direction because of it. I feel like if they only had the one blown lead, I'd be more willing or more confident on the Ravens. But the fact that now there's multiple games with some questionable blown leads that felt very self-inflicted, I'm going to lean the Bengals covering. I wouldn't be surprised if maybe we get a Justin Tucker, end of the game field goal for the Ravens to win it. But I do think the Bengals will keep this close more because of what the Ravens have been doing wrong, not because of what the Bengals have been doing right. I do think that receiving core is going to be a problem with that communication, and I don't think Zach Taylor is necessarily an offensive genius. But if you can get your team to a Super Bowl with no offensive line, I think you can scheme up something this week that, I like the Bengals +3 in a division matchup.
FPI has them as the favorites, 52.8% chance to win versus 46.5% for Baltimore. My thing is that, okay, you beat the Mitch Trubisky, no longer Pittsburgh Steelers in overtime, week 1. Or sorry, you lost to the Mitch Trubisky overtime Pittsburgh Steelers in week 1. You lost to the Cooper Rush Dallas Cowboys in week 2. You beat the Jets, the Flacco-led Jets, by less than 2 touchdowns in week 3, and you beat the Teddy Bridgewater Miami Dolphins on
a short week.
4, short week against, and that game was in question until the very end. So I just haven't seen enough from the Bengals to say that they are in the same stratosphere as the Ravens, and they were darlings last year. Even they didn't deserve to end up in the Super Bowl last year either. They went on a heater. I've seen Eli Manning do it once before. It's not on Monday Night Football. Can I just have an aside real quick? I love my wife, but she unfortunately, I got home late from work and put it on the Manning cast instead of the regular broadcast. So I had to listen to Eli Manning the entire time, and not normally I enjoy the Manning cast. It was subpar last night. I think the Miles Teller SNL skit got to them, and they were just off their game or something. But I had to listen to that mouth-breathing dummy for 3 hours last night, and I don't know. I don't see enough out of the Bengals quite yet to say that they're going to be able to hang with the Ravens at home on a short week.
I dig it. Did John have a pick for that primetime game?
Yes, he did. And do you want to guess what it was?
He's probably taking Joe Shiesty +3.
Yeah, he's taking Joe Shiesty for sure. So this is typically where you fade Toaster because you guys have the 2 first primetime bets locked up together, and that almost always guarantees that I lose on Thursday night. So go Broncos.
I mean, do you want me to flip it? That way we can guarantee you a win? Because I hate my pick. I hate the Broncos. I've never hated I've never had so much hope for a team and then hated them so quickly afterwards.
So fade our Thursday night prime time for our Sunday morning prime time, and then you still get your 4 picks. All right, let's move on to the Sunday night, or the Monday night. Sorry.
We've got Raiders at Chiefs. Chiefs are getting a touchdown, -7. I'm going to keep quick with this one. I'm just going to ride the Chiefs bandwagon. I don't think this is going to be close. I think the Raiders feel good about that Broncos win, but I think that Broncos win is more about the Broncos sucking ass than the Raiders being good. And the Chiefs have all the momentum in the world. I don't think the Chiefs have peaked yet either. I like the Chiefs here, getting 7. I think they win by 10+. Not even close of a game, to be honest.
Yeah, the Raiders are interesting because they've had the Chiefs number every once in a while. I don't think they have the Chiefs number quite yet. 7's a lot, but when the Chiefs win, they typically win by far more than 7 against the Raiders in past history. Outside of the 1 loss and a 4-point victory in 2020, they've covered all of 2021. They've covered all of 2019. They've covered all of 2018 by that spread. or at least they had a push in there. And they also covered up until 2017 December time. So I think that the history says the Chiefs are either going to make this an excessive beating of the Raiders, or the Raiders will win. And I haven't seen anything that tells me the Raiders are going to win.
Yeah, I feel you there. So you got the Chiefs?
Got the Chiefs. And then Kingdom also has the Chiefs.
All right, well, let's hope that the unanimous pick isn't what derails one of the three of our primetime parlays at the end of the week. On to our bonus picks. The slate is looking a little in my opinion. There's some interesting lines, but not a whole lot that stands out for me. So I'm going to kick it over to you on your bonus pick. What stands out to you the most in the Week 5 matchups?
You talked about riding your hot hand, and I'm going to go more than ride my hot hand. I am doubling down money line Cardinals to take down the Eagles, because this just seems like a perfect Cardinals victory to get all of the Arizona fans up in arms and saying, we're back, we can do this. The Eagles are undefeated. They're the cream of the crop in the not only the NFC East, but the NFC at this point in time. And these are the games the Cardinals win, the ones where they just have zero expectations. And Kyler Murray running for 100+ yards in this game because he's not throwing an interception to Darius Slay. It makes no sense, and that's exactly where the Cardinals succeed in my mind right now. So this is the Cardinals' not get-right game, but the game that makes them think that they can compete for the rest of the year. And I feel pretty decent about this one, quite frankly. It's at home. Not that an Arizona crowd ever is truly a home field advantage, but it's a long flight for the Eagles, and it's a afternoon game for them. But Cardinals have enough talent on that team. Don't get me wrong. They have enough talent, and they can keep it close, and I think that they win this one in surprising late quarter finish, some miraculousness that Kyler Murray is able to spin, and all the Cardinals fans say, hey, guess what? We are the team that we thought we were.
We're back, baby.
Yep.
To further kind of bolster your pick, in the last 8 meetings, the Eagles are 2-6 against the Cardinals. I know that dates back to quite about 10 years worth of games, and I know that changes with personnel and coaching and all that. But they did lose. Their last matchup was a 33-26 win against the Eagles at home. So, and the Eagles haven't won in Arizona. I'm looking through the matchups right now. They haven't won in Arizona since 2001. So there might be something to be said about that travel. Being an afternoon game for Arizona means it's an especially late game for East Coasters.
Not a spot they're used to playing in. They're always in the early spot or the prime time spot. Eagles are currently 2-0 away. Cardinals are 0-2 at home. Regression of the means. Take the Cardinals.
I like it. For my bonus pick, to be honest, I could not believe this was the line. After coming off a pretty convincing victory against the Colts, Vegas decided to give the Titans only -2 against the Commanders. I know the Commanders are at home, but I think the Commanders, especially with Carson Wentz at the helm, is one of the worst teams in the league right now. And you have a Mike Vrabel-led team. Derrick Henry got back on track last week. The team's coming off a convincing division win. I just can't believe it's 2 points. So I'm taking the Titans -2. That feels like a gift from the football Vegas gods. Watch it blow up in my face, and Carson Wentz go for like 450 and like 4 touchdowns, and we get a Malik Willis sighting. I don't think that will happen, but it feels like a trap. But I'm taking the Titans -2 against the Commanders. It feels too good to be true to not pass up. So
FPI thinks that it is the trap. They actually have a 60% odds of the Commanders winning. But if you look at the schedule the Titans have played They should have beaten the Giants if they played by normal rules of engagement, right? You don't go for two. That's fucked up unless you're just a piece of shit team. Got absolutely fucked by the Buffalo Bills, but that's going to happen to more teams than not.
Yeah.
Beat an impressive Raiders team and beat an Indianapolis team trying to figure their way out. The Commanders have only beaten Jacksonville in Week 1, lost to Detroit, and lost to Cooper Rush Dallas. Rivera won't be the first coach fired by any means, but this is going to come down to, I mean, Jeff Bezos is probably just licking his chops right now because he's like, if they start losing some butts in the seats at that stadium, I can come in and swoop up this team even cheaper when Dan Snyder gets kicked out. So with that, I think the power of Amazon and Jeff Bezos is the Commanders are going to continue to be a dumpster fire this year, and I'm with you on the Titans.
Yeah, even if Vegas or Pro Football Focus has them or FPI has them as a trap game, I'll take Vrabel over whatever shit show the Commanders got going on right now. Do you know what if John had a bonus pick? Is he going with the Bears again?
He's sticking to the Bears game. It is Bears Vikings this week, and I believe the Vikings are -7 at this point. And he has so much confidence in the Bears that he thinks that Kirk Cousins is going to get another fully guaranteed contract after beating the fucking shit out of the Bears. So he's taking the Vikings -7 against the Bears. Yep.
Not taking the Bears to cover. Honestly, it's probably smart I feel so bad for Justin Fields, man. Like, he really doesn't have a good situation around him, and he wasn't put in a good quick tangent. If you're a scout, avoid any Ohio State quarterback for the next 5 to 10 years. Their offensive scheme and their wide receivers in college are way too fucking good on that team to ever get a proper evaluation of any Ohio State quarterback, because every scheme they just run these trios on the right or left side, and they run these trees that guarantees one of them is so wide open that we could make the throws. And so it elevates the receivers. It makes these quarterbacks have zero ability to read a defense or run through progressions. And we're seeing it in Justin Fields right now. We're seeing that he can't run a progression. We're seeing that he can't maneuver a pocket because he never had to. And so that's a tangent I had. I feel bad for the guy. If I'm a team looking at CJ Stroud next year, I'm avoiding him like the plague. I wouldn't touch him with a 10-foot pole. Not that he won't be good, but I just think there's so many things that coddle Ohio State quarterbacks that it's setting them up for NFL failure. And I think Justin Fields is the first of many. We're going to see that with them. So
I mean, it's not the first of many. It's the probably third or fourth of many just in the last 10 years.
That's true. There hasn't been a good Ohio State quarterback.
Cardale Jones was the one that he should have. I mean, he should have at least got the first round draft bust to his name if he had come out right after that championship game. Instead, was a fourth rounder, I believe, went to the Chargers at the time. So spin that into some quick and easy money. Not saying Justin. I think Justin has enough talent to turn it around, but
I do too.
Don't think
that roster's bad.
I would have taken the Bears in this one. Where would you have gone? Vikings don't win by much.
And I think I would take the Bears because it's a big spread for a division game. The Bears offense isn't great, but you don't know what you're going to get from the Vikings. They have had 2 great games or 2 solid games and 2 games where you're like, oh, this is not the team we thought was going to make the playoffs. So I would take the Bears +7. Yeah.
All right. Two quick hitters, real quick here.
Yeah.
Is this Cooper Rush's first career loss against the Rams this year or this game?
Probably. Well, dude, I don't know, man, because there's always one storyline every year where it's kind of the Cinderella team or the team that kind of goes above expectations. And I think everyone I think everyone had written the Cowboys off once Dak went down, and I think Cooper's going to continue to play with nothing to lose, and he's throwing the ball well. Like, he's putting the ball in good places oh man, I think they cover. I don't think they win. I think this is the first loss they get, but I wouldn't be surprised if they end up covering the +4.5.
I wouldn't be either, because what the Rams have shown me is that a good defense can take them down right now,
And that pass rush is good.
I don't care for Trevon Diggs. I don't think that that's a secret in any way whatsoever. He did have another interception this week, but that pass rush and Micah Parsons is something to behold, quite frankly. The Rams' offensive line is nowhere near where it was without Andrew Whitworth. So that's probably one of the more intriguing games to me this week, and it's not because of the marquee players, which is the best part about it, right? That's why we enjoy football. Is like we have enough scrounge together to say, hey, we can take on the defending Super Bowl champions. And then the other one that I wanted to leave off with, planned on leaving this out last week before the technical difficulties, but the Detroit Lions have the most points for in the league this year. And that is a statement I never thought I'd be saying after week 3 last week, let alone after week 4 this week. Somehow they still lost to the Seahawks, who put up more points in 1 week than they had the entire season. So my lock of the week for my own personal parlays, I do have an OnlyFans, so if you want to hear my own personal parlays where we actually make money instead of the primetime parlays, at me. We can get your stuff, or is it DM me online on Twitter? I don't know. I only
It works.
now.
Both work. Yeah.
But most point for, also most points against. So I don't know where this, bite them in the kneecaps, rip them, get back up and fight them again type of things going with this defense, because that's been a little bit disturbing. I'm a little shocked to see the Patriots as favored in this game, especially with the uncertainty of Mac Jones, and it terrifies me because when the Lions are favored like they were last week, they disappoint. When the Lions are not favored,
But you tell them they're dog.
they're cover heroes, right? So I'm not making a pick in this game. I refuse in any chance I have to pick Patriots games because I can't emotionally hedge. It's just emotionally devastating either way. So I'll leave it to you. Who are you taking, Lions or Patriots?
I'm going purely off the statement of Lions getting plus number. The second they get a plus number, it seems like it's like smelling salts to them. It just like gets them going. So yeah, I would take the Lions to cover, and it's more just them being cover dogs and a little bit of uncertainty, because wasn't Zappy kind of dinged up by the end of that game too, or was that just me dreaming?
I'm not confident if he was dinged up, but they did sign Garrett Gilbert to the practice squad, so wouldn't be surprising to say that they're carrying a third quarterback or a fourth quarterback on the team at that point if he wasn't dinged up.
Gotcha. Yeah, I still think the Patriots can win this game because of how like truly awful that Detroit Lions defense has looked. So yeah, I think the Patriots could win this game. I do still like the Lions to cover the +3 just because you give the Lions plus chance. I'll tend to take it.
Especially if it ends up in a loss.
Yeah, right. 2 games I want to touch on, one for cover reasons and one just for observation reasons. I'll end on the observation just because it's a little harsh, but I think it's hilarious. Falcons at Bucks. Bucks get -9. I think the Falcons just play teams tough, and so I love a division game getting 9 points with Tom having all the off-field issues, them showing just kind of general struggles of late, kind of a slow start to the season. Falcons have been covering well. I do like the Falcons +9 against the Bucks.
This is a Jeezy pick right here. Taking it's not the home dogs, but it is a significant dog in a divisional game. The Bucks should, and please, they will win this game. But Falcons are 4-0 against the spread right now, and that's a big spread to have to lose. So I can't blame this pick at all. And yeah, in honor of Jeezy, we can call this the Jeezy pick.
There you go. And with the last thing I'm going to wrap up on, and we can end on anything else you want to discuss, but the last takeaway, the biggest spread of the week is the Bills hosting the Steelers. It's -14. I just think the Bills win this. I really don't think the spread's actually. I know it's 14 points, but I think the Bills are just going to be a wagon. The reason why I wanted to bring this game up is Kenny Pickett came in halfway through the game last week. He ended up having 2 rushing touchdowns, but up to his last name with 3 interceptions. And this is going to be a little harsh, but my biggest takeaway from that game is I've never experienced a new quarterback coming into a game and instantly knew that he was not the future. I have the second that first pick left his hand, I was like, bro, if that is your deep ball, you are not going to last long in the NFL. I has nothing to do with his hand size. It's just like you ever just watch quarterback Herbert, like usually it's the other way, like Herbert and Mahomes and guys like that. You're like, dude, just the way that ball comes out of his hand, like you just know he's a dude. And the way the ball came out of Kenny Pickett's hand, I'm just like, yeah, no, I would be instantly looking for another quarterback next offseason. So it's a little harsh on mine, but I can't help but feel like he's already not.
I will say I was at the Ravens game, and they periodically do highlights of the other games that are going on at the time. And typically it's, a big play for, okay, a Gallup touchdown, puts the game away, or a pick 6 for the Jags puts them up early against the Philadelphia Eagles. And props to that audio video team, because they cut to the Steelers game when Pickett came in, and the announcement was, and Kenny Pickett throws his first career interception for the Steelers. So
it was like the first drive he was in there.
Yeah,
he basically threw a punt.
But a division rival with what is supposed to be their future. And again, props to that team for just flawlessly, seamlessly working in that awful pick that he threw. Minus 14's a lot.
It's huge.
It's the most that the Steelers have been underdogs since like 1970, I believe.
Oh,
so
Jesus.
That means they're probably going to cover. But they usually cover when they're that big of an underdog. But yeah, the Kenny Pickett is probably not the future, or at least not the long-term future, right? Maybe the 3 to 5 year future. But he's a gamer, and he kept them in that game last week, right? So it could be interesting. But I agree that he's not going to be a Patrick Mahomes. He's not a typical first-round draft pick at this point. So maybe Ben Roethlisberger's got one more year in him if he needs to come back to make a playoff push. But regardless, I'll be watching that game, just like I'm finally back at home and able to watch all 8 games, all 9 games, and the early morning slates.
It's beautiful.
It feels like heaven. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Actually, I have a parting question. We had talked about the Rams having that OBJ pickup at the end of last season, kind of changing everything. This will be my parting question. Instead of going for a receiver this year, do they just hit up Andrew Whitworth halfway through the season again? Just be like, hey, man, what's it going to take to get you to come back for the last half of the season?
I think he made it pretty clear that he wanted to go out on top. Andrew Whitworth had a long career, fought a lot for the Bengals, right? Stalwart player, and I think that there's nothing that could end that high of riding off with a Super Bowl after a career like that. Elway did it, Manning did it. It's something that it's special, and the Rams don't look like they're necessarily just a left tackle away from competing for a championship, even though the NFC is definitely weaker than the AFC. It's just not worth the gamble, not worth the health risk. He looks happy with his family, so I don't think he ultimately does that, but it is a good little teaser to throw in there for a Rams team that desperately needs a spark.
He's staying in shape. That's all I'm going to say. He looks like he's staying in shape. But yeah, we will end it on that. There is quite the parity with the matchups this week. They're not the sexiest matchups, not anything that's really staying out on paper, but usually whenever there's ugly matchups, they tend to be the most electric weeks with high scoring and a lot of shit show going back and forth. So I'm excited for week 5. Week 4 had its moments, but we're on to week 5. Any other takeaways before we wrap it up?
No, let's go Cardinals.
Yeah, let's go Cardinals. I guess let's go Broncos. And oh yeah, I forgot to do it last week because it was such a eventful ending to the episode that I didn't do Let's Ride. So I guess Should I do 2 or should I just do 1? Like, I've never just been so like deflating doing these. Like, it's just so embarrassing at this point because we're so bad that it's like I'm not even doing it ironically. I'm just doing it painfully. So yeah, we're gonna end it here. Broncos country, let's ride. All right, we're out of here. Peace, guys.
Take care, everyone.